absurdity. Let's start with our definition.
Well, okay, I found this, I thought this is wonderful to read the synonyms for absurdity. Preposterous, ridiculous, ludicrous, farcical, laughable, risible, idiotic, stupid, foolish, silly, insane. Imbecilic, insane, harebrained, unreasonable, irrational, illogical, nonsensical, pointless, senseless, outrageous, shocking, astonishing, monstrous, fantastic, incongruous, grotesque, unbelievable, incredible, unthinkable, implausible, and the interesting thing is the sentence at the end is, what an absurd idea.
So you and we are an absurd idea.
Exactly.
And I think I would dare say, knowing you the way I do, you knowing me the way you do, I'd like to say we are both masters of the absurd, and proud of it.
Or slaves to the absurd. I don't know. I guess both, slave and master.
Now, one of my favorites was about the jackrabbit in Arizona.
Now, so there was these two Irish guys. One of them name was John, of course, and the other one's name was Paddy, and they were best friends for life. And as they started getting old, Paddy says to John, one of us is going to die soon, and it's important that we try whatever we can to get back in touch with the other guy from the other side. By the way, this was told to me by an Irishman on St. Patrick's Day on his 86th birthday. Okay, his name was John as well. And he was telling me this joke. So he said, okay, so Paddy dies and John is sitting there and he's kind of lonely and his telephone rings and he says, hello, and he says, John, it's Paddy. He says, Paddy, how are you? Where are you? How is it? He said, it's great. He says, it's just great here. He says, everything you see, you can eat, sex 10 times a day. He says, you're in heaven? And Paddy says, no. He says, I'm in Arizona. I came back as a jackrabbit. and I said, wow, what a story. And the next morning, the wife of John, who was telling me the joke, called me up and said, Louis, John died last night. And it was the last story that he ever told. I just thought that just was, and every time I'm with this woman now, and she's like almost 90, she says, just tell me one more time the story about the jackrabbit, Louis.
That's funny.
That's very weird, very funny,
One of the gods that I have been trying to communicate with, trying to summon over these many last years is, Charlie Chaplin. Contemplating his genius and contemplating his ability to, I guess the word would be pathos. Pathos is like adding a color to humor. It's like a darkening color in humor, I guess. They go together, and that was Chaplin.
He was amazing, wasn't he?
He was a genius.
Yeah, and he wrote his own music. A lot of it was
he did write his own music.
I mean, who else but Charlie Chaplin could have written? Smile when your heart is breaking. It's just, that's him,
Yeah.
In being the hobo or being the guy in the snowstorm, it's just incredible that he was able to do that.
To be every man, and to be at the same time. So we also have a very fuzzy view of Charlie Chaplin. Oh, he was this cute guy. He was very subversive. In his time, and ultimately kicked out of the country. He was a subversive artist. So how to be a subversive artist and with a comic touch is certainly a touchstone for me.
When I think about Charlie Chaplin, I just am amazed. And then, once again, he took it so far. You remember the movie that Charlie Chaplin did, The Great Dictator, where he was a guy who looked like Hitler and later became Hitler, and trying to explain the absurdity of the war and how we all need to love each other and we have to be brothers and sisters and everything. I looked at that and I thought, wow.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost.
We've been friends for quite some time, 15 years probably, which started back with our dear friend Peter Baldwin. Bless, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Peter. I'm sure you're listening to this. And then about three or 4 years ago, when you started working on this project,
Dance of the Little Bells.
Why don't you explain that a little bit to me again, just to make sure I got it.
So Dance of the Little Bells is a movie about a dance, about a poem, about a theater company, about that's ultimately about the act of painting. So it's a dance of metamorphosis from one art form to another art form, and in our conversations, how we can speak one artistic language to another artistic language to come up with a third artistic language when at the end of the day, it's all language about creativity and manifestation of art, and how, you know, a painting can be a poem can be a painting, and ultimately music and painting and poetry and dance come from a similar source of inspiration.
Yeah.
So that's very much what I'm doing. At the core of what I'm doing is painting in the most primitive way, so that I can tell a story of the times that's rooted in the past and rooted in the future, to get to a now that's coming from an unconscious place. It allows me to reveal truths about myself, truths about the reality around me in the most unfiltered way. For multiple screens, for an installation, to be seen big in a public space, and to always be evolving and changing, so that I'm forced to always be moving on. That, you know, it's not something that I want to create something and repeat the experience, because then nothing new is happening. And the basics of it is that it's a real way of celebration into what great artists did before. So when you're making art, when you're singing, when you're on stage, you're part of a deep tradition that went before, and you get a chance to contemplate what the masters are. So, you know, part of my contemplation, again, it's Bertolt Brecht, it's Kurt Weill, it's Charlie Chaplin, it's Alban Berg, it's Shostakovich, it's these G.W. Pabst, these wonderful, and in my, it's Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. And so, you know, again, we all go to our personal pantheon, and I get to think about them, what their act, what their fiery hotness was about, what that great creative drive and inspiration and madness, and going places where, you know, into the beyond, what hadn't been seen before, and what was reviled, and oftentimes at great economic and personal risk. So you know, I haven't had to have much risk, but these guys had great risk. And so to contemplate what it meant to be them, and what their achievements were, by making art, I feel that in a much deeper way than because I'm really looking. You know, when you're making art, you're always really stealing. You're trying not to leave fingerprints, but you're really actively trying to absorb and grab and use these elements to your own purposes and your own use. And it's a way, yeah, and when you're doing that, you're thinking about these artists in a way that you wouldn't do normally. You know, it's one thing to read about somebody and see their work and love their work. It's another thing to, you're really trying to express yourself, and you're really turning to them as fountainheads and as sacred texts and as
muses,
as muses. Yeah. The way people, you know, art for you, for me, is a sacred space. So we're both looking to find the same things that a person in religion would find a sacred text to help them explain what this world around them is. For the artists, you go to the other artists, the other creators, people who dealt with creative and imaginative problems and try to see in a new way. It's not easy to see in a new way. It's not easy to go beyond self and to plug into the ether that's that you're a vessel, that you're like stained glass, that whatever shines through will shine through in your unique way, and to work as hard as these other people do. I mean, you know, the great artists you've met in your lifetime, that I've met in my lifetime, they really committed, and they really went far.
Yeah. You can't ever become your own artist without your pantheon, as I see it, or without the discipline that is required to study, and to learn this and to learn that, and then it all comes together. You know, that's the thing. You know, you see a Beverly Sills or somebody like that when she used to sing, and it's just so easy for her, you know. But my God, you know, when you think about the 20 years that she had to put in before she was finally recognized as a great talent, but she always knew that she could do it, and she always believed in it, and she stayed with it. You know, it's a process. It's not a gift. It is a gift, you know, initially, but it's a process to become the finished product.
And to risk. So again, let's talk about when I think of risk.
Oh yeah.
I think of Stravinsky. You know, so you put on Rite of Spring, and you know you're going to be reviled, and you're making music in a new way that's the totally appropriate music, and it's got those asymmetrical rhythms. It's all rhythm based and asymmetrical rhythms,
right.
and scary and causing a riot. And how does one dare to make art that's going to be reviled or not appreciated? And what gives the artist the, you know, I always look to artists who have a core, who don't need the audience appreciation or the applause. They're driven by some other sense of something within them that knows the rightness of what they're doing, the risk of what they're doing, the risk of failure, and that approval is not necessary.
I don't think that the great artist needs approval.
When you think of the audience, you know, we talked about the voices in our heads, who we listen to, who we always, you know, when you're painting, you're always imagining, you know, somebody's looking at it. And those people, when you're in your own head, are more discerning. They know what you're doing. They know if you're, they know if you're faking it. They know if you're not faking it. They know if you're getting somewhere where you're not getting it. They know every nuance. They're disappointed when it doesn't work, and they're excited when it does work. In real life, they're excited if you're famous,
right?
And they're not excited when you're not famous, and they're flipping through your work in 2 seconds.
People used to always ask me, you know, did you read your review? No. Why would I read my review? They don't know what I did, you know. They're just reflecting how it affected them. It has nothing to do with what I did, you know. Well, how are you going to know what people think? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people think, really. I mean, I guess that's the risk, isn't it? You know. That's the risk.
However, you do look back. So it's amazing how beneficent art is in a certain way for the artist, because as you proceed in your work, it looks okay to you for a while and until that allows you to go on. And usually when it stops looking good to you, the next thing will come that you can make the change. You know, you bury one season's work and you take it away, and it doesn't look good anymore, and then you can start the next season.
It sprouts.
So it doesn't look really awful until you're ready to make a transition.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that it was very good before, but you thought it was good enough to continue.
Right.
So it's not that, and I've seen a lot of very, pretty bad artwork. So I know that, one has to assume that you might be as deluded as everybody else. One has to assume that, that there is no there, that you are deluding themselves, because I'm sure everybody that's doing it thinks what they're doing is valid and okay and good. So just that is so interesting to me. How do you just keep going at it, and why?
I don't know. Because you have to, because you're an artist.
Oh, I guess that's it. It's the what your job on earth is.
Yeah.